The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. I'm getting bugged by my dog, so we can check that box that we're going to have at least one pet interrupting all webinars. Thank you all for joining us. This is the last in the our webinar series. This webinar is called SEM 2030. The idea being that what's SEM going to look like in 10 years? We have a very exciting webinar set up for you guys with some interesting, some great guest speakers that I'm just ecstatic to have, John Wallner and Kim Crossman. And then we also have some excellent updates from our region. We'll have Don Boza from DTE and Nick Dreyer from MIA, the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance. So they're here as well. And then we'll also, of course, have some updates from Wendy Gibson. All kinds of good things happening here today. But to get things started, we will do a poll to get us going. And so our first poll is, so you need to go to menti.com and menti.com and type in this code. You can see at the top, 58672. Go to menti.com, menti.com. You can use your smartphone. You can use you can open another browser window if you're on a computer. Which of the options are limitless? Those are probably your two options. Go to one of those two places, go to menti.com, type in these three sets of numbers, 58672, or it'd be 58,672. And the question is, what are you concerned about in the coming 10 years? I will go ahead and give it away as well, that there's a next question, which is what are you excited about? So this is not we're not just only starting off on a downer. What are you concerned about in the coming 10 years? So I'm seeing some responses come in. These are good concerns: children, job, survival, transportation, water and air quality, climate change is increasingly important. Let's see, economic collapse, yeah. Equality, that's a good one for sure. COVID, yeah, hopefully COVID will go away and be a distant thing in our rearview mirror, but maybe it will have some lasting effects that we would prefer not to have had. Seeing lots of other responses coming in. This is great. If you're just now coming on and dialing on to the webinar, please go to menti.com, menti.com, and use the code 58672, 58672. Type that in. This will be your first question. What are you concerned about in the coming 10 years? Oh man, trumpeting again. Environment, fascism. Yeah, these are all things. Responses are coming in. This is outstanding. And again, we'll have another question here in just a moment. There'll be the flip side of the same question. This should be a fun webinar. The webinars we've had to date have all been pretty much kind of real time. What's going on right now on certain topics, whether it be COVID or M&V or IDSM or DEI. But this one we get to put on our forward-thinking caps. And as we'll see again from a couple of our guest speakers, we'll also be able to look backwards and see if what the past can tell us about our future. More responses continue to come in. So again, concerns in the next 10 years, lack of belief in science. It's kind of important in the energy business. Science denialism. Enhancing virtual audits. Concern. Yeah, sure. Okay, we need to make those better for sure. Continuing to offer SEM, is it going to be offered in 10 years? That's a question. I've got an opinion. I think I share that with at least with Kim Crossman, maybe others. What else do we have here? Safe water. Yeah. Highlighting a few others here. Another 30 seconds for folks to get their entries in, and then we'll go to the next question. Concerned about AI? Yeah, I listened to a podcast series called Stuff You Should Know. Great podcast. These guys they're a lot of fun. But then they did one of the guys did a spin-off series about what was it called? The end of the world and different ways that the world could end. And AI was one of them. I don't think a pandemic was one of them. But it was actually the podcast was done before COVID. Anything else here? Okay, all right. We're going to the next question. Thank you all for your responses. We hit 40. All right, next question. What are you excited about in the coming 10 years? What are you excited about? Lots to be excited about. I know it's a lot of not doom and gloom, but between COVID and our how would I say this? The very big challenges we've had with racism and police brutality in the last that have really kind of hit their zenith in the last couple of months. There's definitely a lot of not just negativity, but there's a lot of things that can be depressing in those conversations. But I think there's a lot of things to be excited. Or how can COVID and the challenges around racism and those things, how can they be the triggers for us to really improve and do some amazing things? And so, yeah, seeing some exciting things coming in here in the responses. What are we excited about? End of COVID. Did I say grandparenting? This is happening very fast. This is a very quick changing. Hopefully you're not getting dizzy looking at this thing populating. Retirement. I wish I was looking at retirement in 10 years. No, not really. That's not true. But it's fun to see it continue to be a large topic here. Heat recovery, interesting. Carbon free. Ooh, hugging friends. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. Having seen some friends, but always at a distance. And have I missing that? Missing the handshake, the hug handshake, the hug, you name it. What else do we have here? Human space exploration. Yeah, wow. Hopefully that's happening in 10 years. Bus growth, very nice. Very important. All right. I'm going to give it another few more seconds, get some more responses coming in. Kim and John, hopefully you guys are taking some good notes. No, this is great. There's a lot of interesting things here to kind of to play with and to kind of get our minds in the right space. And we'll definitely have some, well, of course, we'll have some follow-on questions that we'll get into, that we'll get in more into the weeds about SEM, about the future. We're up to 49 responses, 50, okay, the magic number. So let's get into the webinar. I'm going to leave this poll up. It will not, it won't change for now. So if you're filling it out, you can go ahead and finish that. That's fine. But I'm going to go back to the screen share and get to it. Jump into the regional updates. So the regional updates this month we've had updates from several corners of the U.S. and Canada, which has been a lot of fun. This last time we actually had 8 people provide updates from the Northwest, and one of our learnings from that was let's spread these out. And so we're going to go back to kind of a less is more. And so in the case of the Midwest, we're going to have a couple of updates. And so we will get to it. The 2 individuals will be providing some updates for us about what's going on from their perspectives and their regions in the Midwest. We'll have Nick Dreyer from MIA, the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, and then we'll have Don Boza from DTE in Michigan. For Nick and Don, I know Nick, you've definitely been on some of these webinars, and Don, this may be your first, but if it's not, welcome back. This last webinar, we did a little timer, and so I'll just show you what it looks like. I'll hit the right button. This is it when it gets started, and then it'll fill in over the course of 5 minutes. So you can kind of watch it, and then once it maxes out, then you'll know that it is your time. So I will reset it, but it will first kick things off then with Nick. So Nick, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me, Chad?
Yep, loud and clear. That's great. So okay. Timer, and there you go.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, and this is great. It's good to talk to you all. I hope you're having a good afternoon. So let's see what's going on with strategic energy management with the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance. Oh, and sorry, for everyone's knowledge, I'm the policy director at MEA and cover all of our industrial issues. At MEA, we actually lost out on some funding starting last year, and so we had a lot more dedicated efforts on promoting various federal and other opportunities for strategic energy management. While maybe that has dipped with the lack of dedicated funds, we're still in eyes and ears mode, identifying what's happening and seeing that in the Midwest region, there's a lot of strategic energy management going on, and there's some really good best practices. Wisconsin's a leader in Focus on Energy's portfolio. We've got Illinois, both ComEd and Ameren, Illinois' territories are great. We've got DTE does a great job. Consumers has some projects too. And I'll get into a little bit more where we're seeing the prioritization of SEM, if at all, because it typically happens within the context of the challenges. So moving to that piece, oh, and I'll just say we're continuing to try to check in with a lot of the partners that we forged through previous efforts over the last couple of years in promoting 50,001 Ready, as well as other, Energy Star Challenge for Industry and other federal efforts, and maintaining those connections to be a support and technical assistance to some program implementers as well as customers in our territory, in select parts of our territory. And our territory is the 13th state Midwest. Challenges. The challenges in the Midwest, I talk about this every time I get in front of this group. Opt-outs and exemptions and attacks on energy efficiency policies that impact the ability for customers to participate, particularly those larger customers. And so we've actually seen strategic energy management be a reaction, a response to some of those damaging policies that strategic energy management can really be that assistance and that tool that utilities can provide their customers. And so we're seeing it expand in those territories that have policy rollbacks. Indiana, more utilities are looking at pilots and other opportunities to expand strategic energy management offerings to their customers, even though there's a 1 megawatt level eligibility for opting out for the state. Similarly, Illinois has a big focus on strategic energy management as well as other industrial programs as a result of a 10 megawatt exemption, where those customers are just out. There's no opting in or out. They're just gone. Similarly, we saw some efforts in Ohio before last year when they repealed their entire energy efficiency portfolio standard through HB6. What am I excited about? I'm excited about the pilots. I'm excited about talking about pilots like in Indiana and other places where we're seeing expansion of these principles. I'm also excited about interacting with those in Illinois and Wisconsin and trying to push in any conversation where I can the virtues of strategic energy management as a low-cost, no-cost solution for customers in policy discussions, in a lot of places, looking at local and statewide policies and trying to think through what makes the most sense. Also been excited to work with EPA Region 5. Melissa Holting is really passionate about figuring out how do we further get ahead of and respond to opt-out policies which are rampant throughout the Midwest, and looking at strategic energy management as maybe a fee for service or a cost for service type offering, something that can be outside of the energy efficiency portfolio per se, but can help build that value of energy efficiency for these customers to prevent them from opting out, or to maybe get them to opt back in, and to maybe get them to lobby against things like exemptions at the high levels like in Illinois. So that's what I've been excited about. Thanks for letting me speak.
Wow, Nick, that was great. Very interesting. And you know, each region is so unique in the United States, and definitely when I talk to folks from other countries, they say, "Oh, it's what's going on in this state or that state." I'm like, well, we are almost like, I wouldn't say different countries, but we've got so much to learn from each other, and it's so again rich. I guess the differences can make this definitely fascinating and lots to learn from, and of course with some of those challenges you're outlining, there's something like you also outlined kind of the flip side of this opportunity. So that was great. Thank you so much, Nick. So now we'll go to Don Boza from DTE. Don, are you there?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Don Boza. Obviously I work for DTE Energy. A little background, I've been with DTE 35 years. The last 21 years have been in energy efficiency. I've held various roles. I've been an energy manager that I've been loaned out to our large industrials. I spent 5 years at General Motors. I was one of their energy managers at their tech center in Warren, Michigan. I've run programs internally we've looked at our auxiliary power within our power plants, where we've gone in to try to reduce our aux power so we could dispatch more load out into the grid. So I've got some power plant background. And so currently I'm in what's called our energy waste reduction group. I'm a program manager there, and I run 2 programs, strategic energy management and retro commissioning. And I'm also in the middle of running a pilot right now with Power Takeoff, which is another virtual commissioning type program. So for DTE, for our strategic energy management program, we began it as a pilot, as we do with quite a few new offerings. Is we chose to pilot it in a hospital sector. We had 10 hospitals in the pilot. It turned out to be very successful. The hospital organizations that we were working with definitely embraced it. They saw the value. We had teamed up with Leidos on this, and they've done a very good job during the pilot. And we've taken it to the next step, where we have now expanded into industrials. We have large industrials, which I would define that. Typically, we're looking at loads. We would like to see greater than 50 gigawatt hours a year for annual usage. And then we also have what we call our intro industrials, and those typically are loads greater than 15 gigawatt hours per year. So one of the things that we are finding, probably one of our biggest challenges right now, I think probably everyone else is going to agree with this, is COVID. A lot of our customers have seen reduced production, especially the large industrials. That has also forced them to pull back on capital projects. So one of the other programs that we offer is our downstream, which is all capital projects driven, and they've seen a big decline. And so it's really put a strain on our whole organization for us to hit our goals for this year. One of the things that we were able to still try to get some of these savings is we really looked at COVID shutdowns. We had a lot of our customers, we usually find this, is they feel that they have a very effective shutdown during, let's say during the holidays. But during this COVID, and with no production, you would have thought you should have had probably one of the best shutdowns that you could ever have, but we didn't find that. and by working with the customers, Leidos has been very instrumental with that, is we were able to identify what loads were still operating. A lot of customers in most cases weren't even aware, or they didn't know what made up that load. And so we've gone out, we've been able to get some very aggressive shutdowns during that period of time. So the customer found great value in that. And it also caused the customers to now agree to look at how should they operate during partial loads. You know, all industrials at some point in time have a reduced output, and but their energy profile doesn't always match that. So we've got their attention on it, and that has been one thing I think we're going to be very successful going into the future to continue with that. One of the another challenge for us in Michigan is we typically, in our residential sector, we tried to do some behavioral savings programs, and it met quite a bit of scrutiny from our Public Service Commission. And it was just being able to really measure and be able to identify where that savings is taking place. So when we decided to do the SEM, you know, this was more operational, and we really weren't having that same, you know, we could prove the savings. We've got it well documented. And I apologize. I don't know if you might be able to hear my cat in the background, but it's feeding time. So of course they come over when it's time to eat. But I mean, I would definitely, as far as new projects, we're really hoping that if, you know, we don't see another big spike with the COVID and production can continue, we really want to start getting into some more advanced type engineering solutions for our customers. But that's pretty much where we're at.
Great. Thank you so much, Don. That was outstanding, and definitely interesting. And I'm glad we had two pets up here in this webinar, which I think is actually good luck. I'm not an expert on that, but no, this is great. Thank you again to Nick and Don. We will. Yeah, we definitely will plan, I guess, over time in the future webinars to kind of, like you said, kind of rotate and have different perspectives from each region, and so we'll look forward to hearing from some other folks in the Midwest the next time around. But definitely, please keep us in the loop, Don and Nick, on developments as they unfold. And I'm sure you guys will. So thank you. All right, the featured topic, SEM 2030. Again, fun, forward-looking topic. And for that, I'm so ecstatic to have a couple of people that I greatly admire and have learned myself. I've learned a ton from, and how to look at SEM, look at energy efficiency, look at, I mean, how things get done and how to do things well. And so I would definitely say many of you have met John or Kim. If you haven't, if you do see them at a conference, try to bend their ear, try to just ask them questions, ask their opinions on things, and bring a notepad, because you'll learn some things. They're both amazing folks, and again, we're definitely fortunate to have had both of them and still have them in our industry, continue to contribute in very, very meaningful ways. John Woolner, I'm going to give you guys kind of my personal, I didn't even ask them for bios because I have known both of these folks for at least 10 years. And so I'll do a quick my version of their bio. John Woolner came from manufacturing originally, and he worked in many places, including working in Apple back in the 80s, and reported to Steve Jobs as a production manager, and did a lot of amazing things on the manufacturing side. And he was tapped from manufacturing from a person, Sergio Diaz, who many of you have known, but who brought Sergio at the time was at NIA, and really wanted to leverage what John could bring to NIA's efforts back then. But then over the time since he came into the energy world, has contributed quite a bit, and definitely leading the market transformation efforts that NIA has done in the industrial space, most notably with SEM. And the other things I'll just highlight is that, yeah, he was led that industrial team. They received an award as a champion of energy efficiency for the role that they played in helping to transform the market. And so a lot of amazing hard work done by him and the team back in the day that contributed to where we are now. Kim Crossman, again, another amazing person. In fact, I guess I'm looking at both of these two folks at your pictures and just marveling at, you are two of the smartest people I know. And Kim Crossman, I think anytime someone talks about Kim, it's always like just how brilliant she is and how much, how her brain works. It's really, really something. But I would say, well, yeah, her just kind of her foundational efforts in her career were kind of really got kicked off at the EPA, leading some programs there, and then moving to Energy Trust of Oregon, where she led the first SEM program for what I would call the first program doing SEM in the kind of mature way that it's being done now. And so was definitely kind of partnered with NEA. NEA was the Market Transformation Organization, Energy Trust doing, you know, DSM resource acquisition. And so her job was then to kind of design the programs and continue to design and iterate and pilot and so on to figure out how to make SEM what it could be. And definitely then she, you know, Bonneville picked up kind of her playbook as she continued to be on the cutting edge, and they worked on that following. And then she's had some, again, herself has had some amazing influence across into California, across the East Coast, across many places. And so is an amazing resource here. So we'll start off with John, and John will kick us off. So John, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Good.
And John, I've got a couple of slides. So first, you know, the idea was it would be looking back at 2010, and that was the idea here for Kim and you, and that they could give us a little bit of insight about where we've been to kind of guide us to where we might go. And so the first slide, whenever you talk about NEA, market adoption curves seem to come up. And so I've got this slide up. Can you see it?
Yeah.
So you can talk about this or talk about other things, but and I've also got another slide for you later about the process maturity that helps.
Sure. Sure. Back in the 2010 timeframe, NEA had pretty much wrapped up one of their original pilot runs in the food processing industry in the Northwest relative to something, an SEM program we referred to as CEI, or Continuous Energy Improvement, which was based on Plan, Do, Check, Act, and based on the idea that an organization can treat energy as a controllable expense. So the idea is that we were working with plants to treat energy as something they could manage and effectively work with their local utility to you know, increase their energy savings through reducing energy intensity. The idea was that we find some folks that would be willing to work with NEA's efforts and get them to, if you will, prove that CEI delivered energy savings. And about the time I joined back in 2008, a lot of the stuff in that business was kind of wild in the field. And we spent a fair amount of time just documenting exactly what SEM or CEI was for NEA. And we helped work on ISO 50001 development, and that helped a lot in terms of refining that this in fact was a management system for energy. So it was not a fly-by-night kind of operation. NEA's goals in 2010 were then to develop measurement tools, not only at the plant level for energy savings at the behavior base, but also in developing something at the market level. Because what we were trying to do is understand what level of energy savings could be inferred actually from the market, from I'll call it an informal and somewhat indirect approach that would complement the direct engagement approaches that Kim at Energy Trust and Jennifer at Bonneville were actively doing. We believe that we would never touch every single manufacturing firm in the Northwest at the time, and that they were going to touch the big guys in their service territories. But what about all the rest of them? And how do you understand if they're in fact engaged and are they actually saving energy? So we went down that path, which was a pretty theoretical at the time, but much in line with what NIA did for a living in terms of market transformation. So we actually started a project that created some models that worked at the market level. But while we were doing that, we also felt that the rest of our utility partners in the Northwest needed to get on board with SEM beyond just what Kim and Jennifer were doing. And so we worked with Kim and Jennifer to develop the Northwest SEM Collaborative, which we launched in about 2011. Early 2011 is when we first kicked that off. The whole idea there was that as utilities came on board in their industrial SEM practices developed, they didn't have to start from scratch. That in fact they could leverage the work that had been done already, the work in the gains that both Energy Trust and BPA were going to be seeing, and that new innovations could come to market quicker if we all kind of put our heads together. So that was the notion of why we generated that collaborative. And started with some pretty big, hairy, audacious goals, if I remember right. I don't frankly have the slide left over. But the idea was that we were looking to understand and refine the addressable SEM market in the Northwest. So one of the things that came out of that effort over time were the tools and techniques that were used both in the plant, as well as trying to understand better who the practitioners of SEM were in the field. And Kim had an entire alumni association that she worked with her SEM graduates, and how would they be supported going forward? Were they to be left in the wild by themselves? And how we could capture their energy savings over time. So these are the things that we were kind of all thinking about and started working on around that time.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, John. Very, very informative. Next, we will go to Kim Crossman. And actually, I did forget when I made a few statements about Kim, one other key thing. Again, she's describing some of her pivotal impact. She did chair the industrial summer study, the ACEEE Industrial Summer Study, this would have been 3 years ago, I think, if my math is right, and or maybe yeah, maybe a couple months
ago.
Was it 5 years? Jeez.
Oh, it's a long time ago.
I know, time it's going faster. So yeah, I guess wow, 5 years. So, but in that, Kim did many things to really increase the think differently about how that conference could engage people, people from the program side. And one of the things she did was kicked off an SEM panel. And so, and she made the mistake of tapping myself along with Kevin Wallace, but definitely saw a huge amount of interest from a lot of folks doing SEM. And I would say again, out of things, including that, again, launching the SEM Collaborative between Kim and John and Jennifer from Bonneville, but then also, I guess, really featuring SEM as a very key topic. There's a few other, definitely some pivotal points. So I'm going to highlight that. But Kim, here is your slide about SEM in 2010, Energy Trust of Oregon.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well enough? Good. Funny thing about that SEM panel at ACEEE is that we were actually trying to control SEM because the prior two sessions, 2 years before that and 2 years before that, SEM was leaking all over every single panel. And it had gotten to the point where people going to the ACEEE Industrial Summer Study were like, why is this just everywhere? So we were hoping to contain it, and that relates to some of what I'll talk about right now. But of course, by containing it, we crystallized it, right? And there it goes. So, SEM in 2010 at Energy Trust. The information on this slide is not what I'm going to speak to, but I'm sharing it with you all because bless Energy Trust's heart, their files on their website are amazing. And I was able to go on there and find the business plan and budget presentation that I prepared in October of 2010 for the production efficiency program there, and what was presented to the Conservation Advisory Council there. So kudos to Energy Trust for having all the records that I needed. But what was interesting, and the reason I needed them is because it's all mushing together. That's what I noticed in preparing for this. So much has happened and so much has changed. And trying to go back to 2010, until I saw this, I wasn't quite there. So what I was surprised to see here is that, well, let me give you all context very quickly first. When Energy Trust launched two pilots in early 2009 that became SEM over the next couple of years, the way Energy Trust and most others currently understand it. The pilots were a kind of a CEI pilot that looked very similar to what NEA had been doing with some of the same contractors, SEG, Mark Hamilton. We called it IEI, but it was essentially a similar pilot, but instead of SEM services offered one-on-one, it was done in a group format, in a cohort format. And so that was, and then we also were running the Kaizen Blitz, which was a pilot with Cascade Energy that was a lot, I would call it industrial retro-commissioning with a little bit of end user engagement, right? So, but still there's operational efficiency happening. It's different, but not divorced, right? So these were our two sort of energy management pilots that we ran in 2009. The context here was that the economy had collapsed. All of our, not collapsed, but it seemed like it had collapsed. I mean, we had a pipeline of projects at the end of 2008, beginning of 2009, that got cut down to 1/5 of what it was going into the year. So just devastated, no projects in the pipeline. How are we going to make our goals? Simultaneously, Energy Trust had just taken on the task of doubling energy efficiency in most of Oregon, where Energy Trust serves, within 5 years. And these two things overlapped. So we need to increase savings. We've got budget, galore, and no one's going to be doing big capital projects. So that's where we were, and that's relevant to where we're about to be, most likely. Or when I say no one doing capital projects, that's an exaggeration, but very few capital projects. So we needed to focus on operational efficiency, and our emphasis with energy management was low cost, no cost actions and measures. So this was going to be the way that we were going to harvest O&M savings, which had never been harvested by the program prior to that. Another context point is the production efficiency program was a comprehensive, custom deemed program already before we started this energy management. And so we had a robust, kind of typical good practices, best practices kind of custom program. The SEM joined that as a way to overcome the barriers to custom projects that we were running into all the time. So these things came to play. We were just basically trying to reap savings. 5 to 15% is what we felt we could get with a 1-year intervention with either of these. And that was based on 1 year of experience actually implementing the pilots. One other thing that's important to know that we did here is we were getting good effects immediately from these pilots. The customers love them, exactly what you all experience today. The people embraced it the exact same way they do now. They needed it. It was a lifeline to keep good people working in an economic crisis, saving their companies money so they can afford to stay employed there. So very, very well received by the market. So we just said, it's not a pilot anymore, we're going to scale. So this is, this is me proposing to our organization that we're going to scale, that we're going to go after this. And in fact, the year that this was presented we were estimating that we might get as much as 30 to 40% of our savings from O&M, where we had never gotten any in years prior to that. So this was the birth of SEM for our org. One other context point just quickly is that John mentioned, of course, NEA is what we're built on top of, is that work. But in addition, yes, ISO 50001 was very actively being developed at that moment. US DOE was really busy on SEP, and Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, Amy McCann, very, very busy trying to develop and roll out an SEP program. And then, frankly, the influence of Energy Star and my 4 years working in that department at EPA had a very big effect on how Energy Trust thought about and rolled out SEM. I felt like there was already proof of concept before we started, and all we had to do was turn it into a resource acquisition program to be able to build out all of the nuts and bolts to allow us to effectively measure, claim, and evaluate savings, and then do all the things you have to do in programs, build budgets, set forecasts for savings, figure out how you're going to approach it. But that is not rocket science. That's just sort of mechanics, right? It's doing that type of program development. But it's also where I think the barriers lie for folks who aren't doing it yet. So the one last thing I want to point out on this slide, we have already recognized in late 2010 that having only, one or two providers who know anything about SEM was not going to be a path forward in terms of actually bringing SEM to scale. We also realized that the type of what we were doing and calling SEM was not fully baked yet, that there is room to test and explore different options. And so this was me getting approval to set up an RFP that would recruit a pool of different providers providing SEM a la their imaginations and how they think it could best work. And Chad, you were one of those. And that's actually where I first met you. And I think there are probably lots of other people on this call who were one of those folks. And yes, that was an important thing that we focused on immediately. If we're going to go to scale, we need the providers to be able to truly scale.
Great. Great. This is so outstanding. Thank you so much, Cam. Well, so like we said, these slides, we do have this other slide here, but I did put it here, Cam. We can talk about it in the future.
1 minute on it, just one, because this is an aha that I just want to point people at. What I noticed, I'm sorry, I just wanted to point out, what I noticed is even in early 2010, when we set the measure life for O&M at 3 years, and when I say we, I mean me, like I wrote it up and said, yeah, it should be 3 years, because my planning department would buy that. All right, they were like, yeah, okay, 3 years, that makes sense, But right then we had already realized that if O&M measures only have a 3-year measure life, that basically our cost for this resource acquisition was kind of a wash. That we were getting such a low measure life that the low cost of the savings ended up being about the same as capital. And we already knew that what we needed to do was find a way to raise the persistence beyond 3 years, to prove it out and show that O&M can last. And that actually happened and was published this spring by Energy Trust, research by DNVGL, that looked at data from 2010 to 2017 from the Production Efficiency Program and determined that the O&M savings were absolutely persisting and recommended a 7-year measure life, which has now been adopted at Energy Trust and is going to allow them to continue to scale SEM, to continue to drive it down into smaller sites and into places where it's harder to do. So
outstanding. And thanks, Cam. And definitely, I think we've referenced that study a couple times with this webinar series, but we'll be sure to include a link in the package that we send out to all of you that with the notes here and the link to the webinar recording. So it's particularly as it is a very, very not just useful, a lot of great information in that study, to Kim's point. So it could be very influential on all of you. Thanks, Kim. So now we're going to look forward into 2030. which seems impossibly far. But I'm not a mathematician, but I think it's the same distance forward as 2010 was back. I'm not positive on that. And 2010 to me doesn't seem that long ago. So maybe 2030 will come pretty quickly. Let's go back to John Woolner and kind of trying to put up a couple of images of things that I've learned a lot from you, your laws of process improvement, but we'll, again, if you can cover or.
Wow. So that particular graphic is really something that I stumbled upon 35 years ago while trying to implement process improvement. And basically, I could talk about this very frankly, is that it's very difficult to improve processes that aren't under control. And you can't control processes that aren't standardized, and you can't standardize anything that's not documented. You certainly can't document anything that's not been designed. So the whole notion is try to understand where are you in this particular natural law. One of the things that I would look for with my market transformation hat on, by the way, is to try to define success at what you want the market to feel and taste like in 2030. So if you're aiming at an industrial market space or a commercial market space, you need to have it defined. So if you don't have your addressable market defined for SEM, I always make sure that's done already. I would also go to trying to figure out at what depth is each player in the market, at what level of expertise with SEM. Are they masters? What's a master? Are they beginners? Where are they on that maturity curve that we showed earlier in terms of what they're delivering in terms of savings and influence in the market space? And then across the market, where are you relative to participation? So it's kind of like if you have an installed base of SEM participants, that's a different strategy and different work people have to do than scooping up people and bringing them into the program. And you have to develop the right strategies to deal with the marketplace. I would continue to hold out on the whole notion of measuring the level of market engagement and expertise, and utilizing that to continue the level of innovation that you need. So in many respects, you're most always on an improvement cycle. So if you refer to this particular document only once or twice in your lifetime, that's really good, but I've used it for most of my career. I keep handing it out to people. So there's another thing to understand is that there is a role of responsibility between market transformation efforts and program efforts. And I think I've always contended that they are complementary work. And if you are a program administrator and are trying to do both things, it's really kind of sort of important that you define and understand who's doing what in the marketplace. And how they support one another, that they are in fact complementary and not competing efforts. That's a philosophy that I've attempted to use over time, and I've been somewhat successful in some cases and not so much in others. And I know at one time Kevin had both the program side and the market transformation side under his guise there, and I learned a lot from conversations with him on that topic. But the innovation levels, and I saw innovation in the 2030 slides from the original question earlier, is critical. I think that everybody in the space has to be on an innovation cycle. Everyone has to be in a level of trying things, practicing new ideas, taking the learning from the implementations and the efforts and bringing that back into your programs, bringing that back into your transformation efforts, and constantly adjusting the recipe. The recipe is not a static thing, and that's one key learning looking back 10 years. Nothing's ever stayed the same. And I think nothing's really going to stay the same from 2020 looking forward to 2030 either. But I think if people realize that and leverage that, then 2030 will just be a lot stronger from a results standpoint and from a, I'll call it marketplace capability standpoint. You know, the ultimate goal is everyone's practicing, you know, SCM to a high degree, and utilities just walk in and basically, you know, capture the savings right off the top of the list, kind of a thing, with not a lot of work. So there you go.
That's so great. There's so much to run with on this, and for my team, for team members of mine that are on this call, I'm always beating into their heads about you know, documentation and standardizing. Like, it's really so hard to improve what changes all the time, and so I just again pull from this. It seems like, again, in everything that I do, but definitely in our world. And I think the other key thing, again, which you're saying, and I know again is definitely embodied in how Kim has approached things over the years, is like a culture of innovation where you are not ever stating that you've perfected things. You're always working to analyze and understand, and again, by having things somewhat locked down, that enables you to innovate, and you know, and not locked down, standardized. And then again, with these other, as described here, because then you can know what's changing and what's not and why, and start analyzing. So such valuable points. Thanks, Jeff. All right, so then let's go. I love the slide that Kim put together here with the backward and forward looking versions of Kim. So
Yeah.
Kim, is this all right?
You said use image. I am not very graphical. I'm very wordy, but I did get a new iPad just the other day. So this was me playing with an app that I've never touched before. And I'm Janus, the Roman god of change and transitions. That's what's happening in this picture.
Nice.
It doesn't, I don't know. Anyway,
Great.
please ignore that part of things. Let's see, I guess I just wanted to sort of, thinking about this was so much fun. And I really appreciated the invitation to do so and to talk with you all about it. And, you know, when I think about the past and I think about the future, you know, the past for me, 2010, as I mentioned, was setting up all these structures, rules, requirements, regulatory planning, evaluation, budgeting, forecasting, learning how to do SEM as resource acquisition. So that was the big opportunity that was in front of us in 2010. That we hadn't realized all these benefits yet in 2010, but this is what we were looking at. This is what we thought we were going to get and where we were headed, right? I would make the case that for Energy Trust, they have absolutely accomplished all of these opportunities over the next 10 years. Building on something that John Wallner said, you know, what are the opportunities right in our face right this second that seem very obvious to me is actually learning how to deploy SEM in a way that drives true continuous improvement. That's kind of, it's the thing that's been in reach, close by, we can see it, it's where we're all headed. It's very aspirational still. And the question of what does that look like? And once it happens, how does that work with the SEM program? Because there's issues here related to influence and whether you can keep working with people after they have been transformed, right? So that's still something that I hope we get to tackle, and that is probably have to tackle at this very, very soon. The bigger opportunity of whole building programs or NMEC, normalized metered energy consumption approaches to EE, which is beyond SEM, is an emerging and growing area. A lot of focus on it in California, where I'm currently working, but I know that, and this is across sectors, both commercial and industrial as well. And I think that there's a great opportunity on the threshold for SEM to be, you know, was early in actually doing this successfully. We have things to teach and to share, to transfer to those who are trying to do this, because in general, they rarely think about how it works for industrial, for example. And so in particular in that area, there's a need to merge these things. SEM is essentially a type of whole building / NMET program in reality. It may not be in terms of the regulatory structures. So there's a great opportunity for IDSM that you all have addressed in a recent, some of this stuff, it's funny to me when I think about what's right on our doorstep, it absolutely aligns with what you all have been presenting on these webinars. You know, the increased diversity, equity, and inclusion, the ability to integrate IDSM fully into SEM programs. All of these things are right in front of us and we get to tackle them now, I'm pretty sure. And in terms of DEI, I want to mention that I was so thrilled to see the panel of Northwest SEM program managers and the women, all the women doing this work, single-handedly changing the gender balance of industrial energy efficiency in the United States from the Pacific Northwest, because SEM is inherently open, it is engaged, it is collaborative, whether you're an end user participating in it or you're one of the people delivering these programs and involved in it. It takes a skill set that actually can really help people who have not always thrived in strictly hierarchical structures that we've had traditionally. And I see people grow tremendously who are doing SEM and thrive and advance their lives through doing it, both in the plant and in our world, the energy efficiency world. So the last thing I'll point out, 2030, I don't have to talk about any of this, and I almost added another 15 things to this list. The point here is that SEM is a program that helps us work with end users to improve their capacity for productive change, right? That's what SEM is. It's a change management training. They learn how to drive massive change in their own organization. And by doing that, they are set up to tackle some of these more complex or extremely complex challenges facing us in the future. I didn't put all the alarming things on this list that I think could go on there, but I'll let you all, we did that first question and you can fill in the blanks. I think the big opportunity we face with all of this is that the problems of the future are not purely about energy. I mostly focused on energy in this list, but in reality, they're economic, they're environmental, and they're political, and they're well beyond the energy world. And I think the greatest opportunity we have is to figure out how to how to actually effectively partner with the entities that are focused on economic development, the entities that are focused and funding carbon and climate, the local, state, and federal entities that hopefully will be functional again, and be able to be engaged with this stuff. We have to be able to figure out how to get our systems to talk to each other effectively and to work together effectively, and not have the fact that our funding sources and our administrative processes keep us from doing that, because that's where the big opportunity lies.
That's great. Kim, thank you so much. This is wonderful. And again, I'm so happy with the outcomes of the guidance that you and John have provided. This is everything that I could have hoped for. And hopefully for all of you on the call, you've, again, learned a few things or are looking at some of these challenges and opportunities in some very enhanced, elevated ways based upon what we've learned here. Flexibility is important in what we do. So Wendy, if you're there, I'm going to put on one of our polls, and then while people are responding to that poll, we can go to that poll. Here we go. Here we go. Well, people are responding to this poll, so go back to menti.com, type in the code 58672, or if you kept your browser open for that page. The question is, do you agree or disagree that these types of SEM program types will grow dramatically? I did not include cohort SEM. I put the one-on-one SEM with like usually with large folks, vertical like sector-focused SEM, web-based SEM, multifamily, citywide like working across a metro area with a number of, or perhaps a downtown corridor, multi-utility spanning SEM, working with multiple utilities for maybe across the state, small business SEM, which could be the people that are below like the different thresholds that, for example, that Don was describing. And then really small business SEM, which I would say would be like, okay, now think really small, not just below the threshold. And so while people are responding to this, Wendy, if you're there, we can talk over this and talk about the couple of things that we have updates on. Are you there?
Yeah. Chad, can you hear me?
Yep, that's great.
Oh, perfect. Okay. All right. This is actually perfect because I am just coming on really quickly to tell you guys just a couple things. So one is don't forget to sign up for the SEM Summit coming up on August 17th. You can register through ACEEE's summer study building. It's going to be kind of kicking off that week long of great learning. We have a great lineup scheduled. We're going to be doing a quick kind of national look, and then we're going to be digging into an example case study of a program that incorporates DEI, also getting feedback on exactly what you guys want from us from a DEI perspective. Then we're going to be switching into kind of an M&V section where we've actually got, you know, our big evaluators that are evaluating all of our programs. They've come together, they're working together for a presentation about modeling M&V in the time of COVID, which I'm really excited about. So it's not just one evaluator's point of view, it's them coming together and talking about it. In fact, I decided to name the SEM Summit Better Together because of all the stuff that people are doing by coming together. We're also going to be looking at the research paper that we're doing and some negative savings. And then the last part of the presentation or the summit will be actually listening to two participants that I would say fall into the city SEM category and the small business category of SEM. And they are dynamic, outstanding participants. We'll be talking about barriers and solutions to actually incorporating those two types of participants into your SEM programs. It'll be a very interactive piece as well. So we're really excited for that. And then the other thing I wanted to announce is that we've solidified our process plan for transitioning 3 of our leadership team members off the board come December. And so at the SEM Summit, we will be kicking off that recruitment process. So it will end with an email after the summit about details around that. But if you're interested in being on the leadership team board here, then we're excited to kind of have a call for that. So those are the 2 things I have, Chad, and I think we are at time.
That's great. That's great. Perfect. Well, Wendy, thank you so much. And again, some more to come, but definitely the key thing is join us at the SEM Summit. It is virtual, so you can join it from the comfort of your desk, your computer, your couch, and join us. We'll have a lot of great things, including some excellent steps forward. So thank you all so much. Again, we will send out these notes, the results of these polls and so on, and as well as the recording for the webinar to you all. Have a great day, and we'll see you all in about a week and a half. Thanks and take care.